The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is a thriller novel that has been adapted twice so far. Once in 2009 in Swedish and then in 2011 by David Fincher. Despite both being adaptations of the same story, they both feel different enough, making them distinctive in their own ways. And in today's video, I'm going to compare them both to see which one is overall better. Full disclosure, I have not read any of the Stieg Larsson books, so my knowledge of this story starts and ends at these two movies only. Hence, I'm judging these films based on the merits of the movies themselves, not which one's a better adaptation. Now, let's get started. Given the fact that these are both adaptations of the same book, the main storyline is basically identical. Both movies follow Mikael Blomkvist, who, due to his hard-to-pronounce name, I'm going to refer to as just Mikael for the rest of the video. He is a disgraced reporter who is hired by Henrik Wagner to investigate the 40-year-old disappearance of Wagner's niece, Harriet. Wagner believes that Harriet was killed by a member of his own family. While Mikael is investigating the case in the main storyline, Elizabeth Salander is going through her own problems, ranging from losing access to her money due to her psychological evaluation to getting brutally raped, only to then take revenge on the said rapist in a brutal yet fairly satisfying way. She eventually joins Mikael in search for clues and answers, which leads to a unique and interesting pairing between two very unlikely individuals. In the Swedish version, the murder mystery is simple and to the point, which allowed me to get engrossed in the story. Fincher's version, however, is way more dramatic, almost too dramatic. Fincher dramatizes to the point it feels less realistic. Now, sure, stories do need some drama, but Fincher's version felt like a drama throughout with some moments of thriller in it, while the Swedish version felt like a thriller with some moments of drama here and there. Personally, I prefer the latter when it comes to the thriller genre, with some exceptions. Fincher's version has a lot more cuts all over the place to keep the audiences engaged, and it works. It all seems good until you realize that the actual mystery of Harriet feels rather secondary. The main plot seems like an afterthought instead. Swedish version, on the other hand, has more exposition, but is also paced quicker, with each scene following the next immediately. It's almost too quick at times due to the weird editing that cuts off what could have been great build-up, like when Elizabeth finds out someone was at their place. This was much better in Fincher's version, as it was more like an implication than a blatant deduction.
How'd you get in?
Both movies are like puzzle pieces that the audience has to solve with the characters, but I personally found one to be more engaging than the other. Fincher's version kept distracting me from the main mystery at times, to the point it's less of a let's solve it together and more of a let Mikael solve it when the plot demands it instead. The actual mystery didn't hold my interest for long, and outside the main leads, the rest of the characters weren't interesting enough to hold my attention either. It is a very well made movie, but it also feels like a soap opera at times, challenging you to not doze off halfway through, which feels weird to say since there are more melodramatic moments in the Swedish version. The very beginning, when we are first introduced to Henrik, is one of them. We see him cry over the frame that he thinks the killer is sending to mock his grief, while the Fincher's version of Henrik isn't emotional until the very end. He feels more like a let's get down to business type of guy. Other characters from the Wagner family are more dramatic. I mean, the main bad guy is supposed to be a mystery, but it was so obvious in the Fincher's version that this was the guy. Just look at how he's introduced. Giving this character more of a personality and screen time may make the twist more surprising for some, but for me, it just made me forget who some of the other characters even were. I only remembered him, and him trying to appear as a nice guy just made me suspect him more. That's the biggest criticism for me with the Fincher's version. While the main leads benefit from Fincher's dramatized style, the other characters, like the Wagner family, are straight up forgettable. The only one that I remembered outside Henrik himself was Martin, and even then, it's mostly because he was a famous actor whose character looks shady from the very first scene he's in. This is one reason the unknown actors in the Swedish version worked better for me. Added that, the Swedish version didn't require over-reliance on style to increase its potential quality. It just had a great mystery with decent visuals and fascinating characters. In Fincher's version, aside from the main leads, every other character felt rather uninteresting to me, including the ones outside the Wagner family. I especially hated the reveal in Fincher's version where Mikael's daughter points out the Bible verses, which helps him connect the dots between the murders. His daughter, being the one to notice the symbolisms, felt so forced and even lazy. It felt like a coincidence and a very contrived plot point, whereas in the Swedish version, Elizabeth is the one who notices it and then contacts Mikael about it, which then leads to him tracking Elizabeth and talking to her about the case. In Fincher's version, he contacts Liz after he finds out that he was hacked and got a background check before getting hired. Sure, Elizabeth sending the email, which then left a trial, feels forced too, but it can also be interpreted as Elizabeth having interest in the case and then tricking Mikael to look for her. It'll explain why she doesn't feel as threatened by by him in the Swedish version, just a bit surprised. Whereas in Fincher's version, she is more at edge. Both characters finally meeting for the first time and working together feels more earned in the Swedish version because technically they already did collaborate on the case. In Fincher's version, the mystery isn't as much the main focus of the movie as it is a vehicle to bring these two characters together. In the Swedish version, the mystery is the focus and still manages to get the leads together without prioritizing one over the other. Both movies take their time to show you that the characters are on separate tracks approaching each other. Then they finally work together and it takes both of them to solve the mystery. Once the mystery is solved, they continue on their separate tracks. Only the ending is different in each movie. But I'll talk more about that in the characters section. The pacing is also much faster in the Swedish version. There may be some exposition, but it's delivered well and it made me feel like an active participant who actually got to pay attention to the actual mystery. Just take a look at the bridge scene.
Ja, den här bron är den enda förbindelsen tillbaka till fastlandet.
In the Swedish version, we're getting information regarding the setting, which then helps us understand the case. In Fincher's version, we're getting some dialogue regarding the weather that isn't really doing anything new since we can see that for ourselves.
It's lovely in the spring.
You said it would be lovely in the winter.
You'll be home tonight, if that's what you wish.
The only thing Fincher's version have over the Swedish one is its visuals and set design. Even then, it's not a surprise since the Swedish version cost 13 million while Fincher's version cost 90 million. Given the size of that budget, it's not fair to compare the visuals since one of the filmmakers had a lot more resources to achieve his vision. As a matter of fact, the whole Swedish trilogy combined cost less than a third of what Fincher's version cost. Fincher's version portrayed a typical murder mystery as this overly stylized epic, which worked in some areas but not for the whole story, at least not for me. In comparison, the Swedish version played it straight with very little filler by putting the story more at the forefront of the picture, which made me appreciate it in spite of some choppy editing. Fincher's version, whilst technically brilliant, kept on distracting me from the story, which made me less invested in the main mystery. The final reveal in the Swedish version was also much better in my opinion to Fincher's version. Harriet being Anita this whole time doesn't make much sense since it means that for the past 40 years, the police, all those detectives, or any of the other family members never ever met her or contacted her, despite all those flower frames leaving a trail each year and keeping the investigation open to an extent. Not to mention her living under the name of a dead woman for years didn't raise any suspicion from anyone. In the Swedish version, Harriet moves to Australia, which explains why she was much harder to find and was able to send all those frames without being tracked. The Swedish version made the thriller experience more engaging and the mystery aspect more entertaining than Fincher's version, since I actually cared about the main mystery itself. So the winner of this round is the Swedish one. Let's start with the girl with the dragon tattoo herself. Lisbeth Salander is by far the most interesting character in both these movies. Her character gives the stories both a stylistic edge and a soul at the same time. Both of the Elizabeths in their each story are similar in a sense that they are antisocial and unfriendly. The Swedish version of Elizabeth is intense, more physically imposing, rebellious, and carries a punk rock aesthetic which makes her look like a goth musician. Fincher's Elizabeth is also edgy but has an even mysterious past. This Elizabeth has an even more gothic appearance and a somewhat colder and emotionally reserved demeanor. She feels more like an introvert who doesn't want to be near people, let alone talk to them. The very scene when they're introduced in their individual movies show the major differences between them. In the Swedish version, she is in the meeting room early on but doesn't want to talk to anyone. In Fincher's version, she is led to the meeting and stays far away from everyone. Yet she is also somehow more talkative despite being more introverted. There are many more differences among them that show their individual personalities while remaining consistent to the core character. When Elizabeth has her laptop broken, the Swedish version shows her off as a physical threat given how she is able to fight multiple men. It makes her look like an action hero, which makes the infamous rape scene even more brutal given how useless all that strength became when she really needed it most. Fincher's version is more realistic however, since it's just one guy who steals her bag and when she fights back, she's also the one to run away. Given Rooney Mara's much skinnier frame, this makes sense. The scene also shows her more strategical approach to fights. She's more of a hacker and less of a brawler. This version of Elizabeth is also much younger and has far more interest in Mikael. In the Swedish version, they come across more as friends than lovers. In Fincher's version, however, Liz is far more emotionally and romantically invested in Mikael, who isn't as interested. The movie makes sure to show how much Elizabeth has taken a liking to Mikael through Rooney Mara's subtle performances whenever he's around, but also made sure that Daniel Craig version of Blomkist sees it less like a romantic relationship and more like a friends with benefits situation. The most telling of this is in the moments they share on screen and how it's subtly implied.
Sorry. Yeah, right. That's the one. Where the fuck's that? That's down there, isn't it?
I like working with you.
I like working with you too.
Put your hand back in my shirt.
I have to commend Rooney Mara's performance here. Her facial expressions are just as good, if not better, than the Swedish actresses. But when it comes to body language, Mara is so much more expressive. Her interest in Mikael can be seen all over her face, which makes the ending even more heartbreaking. She is shown to be vulnerable to only two people throughout the movie, one of whom was her guardian, who is now physically disabled, while the other doesn't seem to know about her feelings towards him. The Swedish version tried to make her vulnerable using her backstory, and they did a wonderful job too, exploring her childhood trauma. The actress also did great with the character and performance, but in my opinion, Mara's version of Elizabeth felt less like a performance and more like her becoming the character. Her subtle expressions, tone of voice, body language, and especially the way she's consistently framed on shots really made her stand out in a way that the Swedish version just didn't. When talking about this character, regardless of which movie you discuss or prefer, one scene always comes up, the assault scene. This scene is disturbing in both movies, so it's not the scene itself I'm about to talk about, but instead I want to talk about the abuser. Both movies portray this character as a disgusting piece of shit, but I found him to be especially more hateable in the Swedish version. In the Swedish version, the abuser is not just a rapist, but a straight up power-hungry bully. He doesn't just want to abuse Elizabeth, but also establish his authority over her. He enjoys abusing his position of power over a powerless woman by forcing her to please him for her own money. He uses her unstable past against her, and then even mocks her by taking it a step further by paying her a much smaller amount than she had asked for in order to buy her computer. He's basically implying that she's a cheap whore by doing so. It adds even more insult to the brutality that she faces later on. All this made the revenge even more satisfying when she finally repays the favor. In Fincher's version, the abuser is more of a perverted creep who uses this fake nice exterior to hide the pig that he is. I love how in this version, Elizabeth confronts him in the elevator after taking her revenge to threaten him one last time. It was an amazing scene that I personally liked even more than the revenge tattoo scene itself. I especially loved when she dropped this line.
And stop visiting tattoo removal websites, or I'll do it again. Right here.
It implies that she knows what he's searching online and that despite the nice guy act that he tries to put on, she can see right through him. This was such a great scene that showed how intimidating she can be despite her small stature. Both versions had their qualities and both were very good, but if I have to choose one over the other, I'd have to go with Fincher's version. Mara's portrayal of Elizabeth felt so real and dangerous, whilst showing a more vulnerable side that wasn't as captivating in the Swedish version, especially at the end. Next up we have Mikael Blomkvist. Mikael in Swedish version works well for the story but doesn't stand out as much as Greg does in Fincher's version. Greg's version feels more like a real person with real interest and personality. He's the kind of person who would be unlikable in real life given his infidelity issues, but is engaging in this movie's world. His character interactions with Elizabeth made for a great duo, even if he seems to be a lot more focused on the mission and misses how Elizabeth really feels about him. Both characters in the Swedish version are fairly balanced and end on friendly terms. They share mutual respect for each other, but there is not much in terms of romance, which is also perfectly fine. Both versions of the characters are well executed, and most of the differences in their portrayals are directly influenced by the filmmakers and actors involved. The essence of the characters, their intelligence, determination, and complex personalities remain consistent in both versions, but I personally found it to be more thoroughly explored in Fincher's version. While the story is more straightforward and engaging in the Swedish version, the main characters are better executed in Fincher's version. They're both people who take revenge on those who wronged them, and between those moments share a bonding experience. Winner, Fincher's version. I personally think that the Swedish version definitely should have gotten a slightly bigger budget. Having said that, Fincher's version was way too expensive at 90 million. And this was back in 2011. When you adjust it for inflation, it's around 100 million now. Hollywood has spent more money on individual episodes for their TV shows compared to the Swedish version. Maybe that's why the Swedish version looks kinda like a TV movie at times. Not that it has to be a bad thing, especially if the episode in question is surprisingly good. It's time for the scores. Fincher's version of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo gets a 7 out of 10. And the Swedish version gets an 8 out of 10. The Swedish version gets points for the mystery and the build up to it, while Fincher's version scores for the technical aspects such as visuals, set design, editing, music, and great acting. Despite my preference being the Swedish one more, I did like some of the changes that Fincher made as well, especially the ending, where Mara's Elizabeth is left heartbroken. If only Fincher had gotten to finish his trilogy. Great thrillers are very hard to come by as is. Speaking of which, if you like a brutal domestic psychological thriller, check out my debut novel, New Address. It's a story about two vastly different families that due to circumstances have temporarily become neighbors. Little do they know about the chaos that awaits them. It's nothing like The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, but it does have a lot of suspense and an unreliable narrator. So if you're interested, please do check it out. I really don't know how to market books otherwise. That's it for now, guys, and I'll see you all in my next video. Until then, bye.